Welcome to the dark heart of the Great Lakes. You know Michigan for its stunning shorelines, but beneath the beauty lies a terrifying history. We're opening the file on 15 of the state's most haunted places, from the River Raisin battlefield, where the war never ended, to the Detroit Masonic Temple's hidden secrets and the tragic halls of Eloise Asylum. Prepare yourself, because in these places, the ghosts far outnumber the living. One, River Raisin National Battlefield Park, Monroe. The air here is too quiet for a park. A silence that presses down on the ground, soaked in historical agony. This isn't just a stretch of scenic land in Monroe, but the site of the bloodiest battle in Michigan's history, the Battle of Frenchtown in January 1813. The rallying cry, "Remember the Raisin," wasn't just about defeat. It was about the brutal massacre that followed, where British allied Native American warriors descended upon hundreds of captured and wounded American soldiers. The official records note the staggering loss out of nearly 1,000 American men. Only 33 escaped death or capture. Imagine the final moments, the confusion, the cold of the Michigan winter, and the desperation as the wounded were scalped, killed, and their bodies left unburied, later scavenged by wild animals. The National Park Service preserves the history, but what truly lingers are the claims of the supernatural, begging the question, can such concentrated, horrific violence ever truly dissipate? It's easy to dismiss ghost stories, yet numerous visitors and even park rangers themselves have reported phenomena that defy logic. People speak of feeling sudden, unnatural cold spots that cut through the warmest summer days, or hearing the ghostly sounds of battle cries, muffled gunfire, and the sorrowful moans of the dying, even when the park is completely deserted. Most chillingly, apparitions of soldiers in period uniforms, seemingly unaware of the last 2 centuries, are occasionally glimpsed wandering the grounds, often near the river, perhaps eternally looking for the rescue that never came. When you walk the tranquil paths of the River Raisin National Battlefield Park, you are walking on a mass grave, a place forever scarred by betrayal and bloodshed. Given the sheer scale of the trauma that unfolded here, the countless souls who met a horrific end, and the consistent accounts of battle cries echoing from the empty fields, are you prepared to face the spiritual residue of a national calamity? Or will you simply become another witness to the war that never truly ended? 2. Detroit Masonic Temple, Detroit. You see the Gothic masterpiece of the Detroit Masonic Temple. That's the largest of its kind in the world, and you can instantly feel the weight of its secrets. Built in the 1920s with over 1,000 rooms, secret passages, and hidden staircases, the sheer scale is unsettling. A labyrinth of stone designed by and for a secretive fraternity. But the most famous ghost story connected to this colossal structure revolves around its own architect, George D. Mason. The legend, which has been widely reported by local news and ghost tours despite being historically debunked, is terrifyingly personal. Mason allegedly poured all his fortune into the building's construction, went bankrupt, lost, and utterly distraught after his wife left him. Chose to end his life by leaping from the roof of the very temple that ruined him. While official records show he died peacefully at 91, the ghost story is more powerful than the fact. Security guards and staff continually report feeling an intense, unseen presence on the upper floors, accompanied by the faint, distinctive sound of ghostly footsteps ascending the stairs. Toward the restricted rooftop, Mason's final, endless walk beyond the architect. Witnesses speak of shadowy figures drifting through the long, dimly lit corridors, unexplained cold spots that cling to certain rooms, and the unnerving feeling of being watched from the many dark recesses. This place is so steeped in myth and ritualistic history that the line between urban legend and genuine paranormal activity is permanently blurred. So, when you stand in the shadow of this immense stone structure, a building created for men who dealt in ancient mysteries and hidden knowledge, you have to ask, is the spirit of George D. Mason truly haunting the heights of his failed dream? Or is the temple itself a monument that simply demands a ghost worthy of its tragic grandeur? 3. Mackinac Island, Devil's Kitchen. Welcome to the idyllic shores of Mackinac Island, a place so picturesque it feels frozen in time. Yet along its southwestern coast lies a dark grotto carved by the waves of Lake Huron, the Devil's Kitchen. In fact, this shallow limestone cave is unnerving not for its size, but for its appearance, a gaping, blackened maw in the rock face, and the sinister legends it holds. The indigenous peoples of the Straits of Mackinac considered this cavern a numinous location inhabited by malevolent spirits. The most terrifying tale, often recounted by local lore and early settler accounts, speaks of the cave being the home of the Chastod, red Jeebizan cannibal giants or evil spirits who would capture and roast unsuspecting victims over their perpetual cooking fires before consuming them. To this day, the inner walls of the cave are unnaturally blackened with soot, which is alleged to be the residue of those gruesome feasts, giving the site its sinister name. While some historians debate if these chilling stories were entirely fabricated to scare early settlers or boost tourism, the fear is undeniable. The ominous black staining and the cave's resemblance to a wide-open, beckoning mouth make it impossible to dismiss the ancient warnings. Furthermore, the island has its own history of modern tragedy. In 1960, a wealthy widow, Frances Lacey, was mysteriously murdered on the island, and her body was later found in the bushes tragically close to this very formation. As you stand before the dark, soot-stained opening of the Devil's Kitchen, a place steeped in legends of cannibal spirits and real-life unsolved murder, you have to ask yourself, is the chill you feel merely the wind off Lake Huron? Or is it the breath of something ancient and hungry waiting just inside the shadows? 4. Traverse City State Hospital. Traverse City, before it became the trendy shops and condos of the village at Grand Traverse Commons. This massive 19th century complex was the Traverse City State Hospital, an asylum designed under the optimistic "beauty is therapy" Kirkbride plan. But beneath the facade of kindness and gardens lies over a century of profound mental anguish, a spiritual vortex of lost souls. Though the hospital's founder forbade straitjackets, the walls witnessed untold numbers of lobotomies, despair, and, later, the tragic abandonment of patients when the facility closed in 1989. For years, while the building sat vacant, they became a mecca for trespassers who reported a suffocating sense of negativity, which some believe is the collective fury of the angry prisoners. Ghostly accounts are numerous, and unsettling staff members speak of experiencing sudden fits of nausea and lightheadedness. upon entering the old electroshock therapy rooms, and paranormal investigators often catch disembodied voices on recordings, sometimes yelling a furious command to leave. Even the buildings currently undergoing renovation are haunted. Construction workers have reported seeing inexplicable shadowy figures, while outside, urban legends cling to the dark woods, particularly the infamous hippie tree, which locals claim is a portal to hell that can be activated if you walk around it in a specific, secret pattern. The very foundations are riddled with a vast, dark network of underground tunnels, once used to transport patients and supplies, where the despair is said to be densest, given the intense spiritual trauma associated with mental institutions of this era. The consistent reports of aggressive entities, and the legend of a demonic portal on the grounds. One must ask, as the living cheerfully reclaim this historic structure, have they truly exorcised the immense suffering of the past? Or have they simply built new walls around spirits who were too lost to ever find peace? 5. The Henderson Castle, Kalamazoo. Perched dramatically on a hill overlooking Kalamazoo, the Henderson Castle. A magnificent Queen Anne fortress built in 1895 was meant to be a crowning jewel, but quickly became a monument to a dream cut short. Its original owner, Frank Henderson, a prominent businessman, died just 4 years after the $72,000 mansion was completed, leaving his widow to preside over the massive 25-room estate alone. Today, the castle operates as a charming bed and breakfast, yet its most loyal residents are far from living guests. The castle is renowned for multiple recurring apparitions, so common that its haunted history is often advertised in local news and by ghost tour groups. The most frequent encounters involve the original owners, Frank and Mary Henderson, whose translucent figures are often seen gliding through the hallways and near the top of the grand staircase. More chillingly, the castle is haunted by a little girl whose father was allegedly working on an archway when she fell, breaking her neck. The partially written mark of her name is said to mysteriously reappear in the wood stain. After numerous attempts to cover it up during renovations, guests and staff consistently report being tapped on the shoulder by unseen hands, hearing inexplicable footsteps on the empty third floor, and witnessing doors and cabinets mysteriously open on their own, with spirits so active they seem intent on interacting with the living, and with a history of family tragedy baked into its very structure. You have to ask when you check into the Henderson Castle for the night, are you truly a paying guest? Or are you just providing a friendly audience for the ghosts who will never check out? 6. Holy Family Orphanage, Marquette. This colossal, seemingly benign building in Marquette, now renovated into apartments, once housed the Maruville Fionis Holy Family Orphanage. Ashalton, and its true history is a nightmare of abuse and stolen childhoods that stains the very foundation. Opened in 1915, it quickly gained a reputation not as a sanctuary, but as a place where the cruelty of the nuns was legendary, and where many of the initial residents were Native American children forcibly removed from their families as part of a brutal assimilation effort. But the dark rumors go beyond cruelty. Unverified yet persistent accounts, confirmed by former residents, tell the story of a small girl who died of pneumonia after being caught in a snowstorm. And as a barbaric lesson to the other children, The nuns allegedly left her tiny body on display in the lobby. Though the building has been structurally modernized, the spiritual scars remain active. Paranormal investigators and former trespassers frequently report phenomena tied directly to this tragic history. The sound of children's cries and giggling, echoing from the now empty hallways. Mysterious lights flickering in the abandoned wings, and a particularly chilling sighting in the lobby where a baby carriage was seen mysteriously rolling across the floor with no one pushing it. Most disturbing of all is the alleged haunting of the basement, where a young boy's body was reportedly hidden after he died under mysterious, violent circumstances, a location where many have reported seeing a glowing green orb hovering over a medical-style table. With a history of such profound human rights abuses and the unquiet spirits of forgotten children demanding attention, the question is simple. Are the current residents of this building truly living alone? Or are they permanent roommates with the ghosts who will forever remain trapped in their painful childhood home? 7. White River Light Station, Whitehall. Built in 1875, the White River Light Station stands at the narrow channel connecting Lake Michigan to White Lake, a beautiful, solitary beacon with a tragic human haunting. The light's first and most dedicated keeper was Captain William Robinson, who, along with his wife Sarah and 13 children, lived and worked here for an astounding 47 years. The lighthouse was his life, and when the government mandated his retirement in 1919 at age 87, he famously declared he would never leave this building. He kept his promise. Captain Robinson died in his sleep the day before he was due to vacate the quarters. This intense, possessive dedication is why he is the resident ghost. A legend so widely accepted that it is often detailed in books like Michigan's Haunted Lighthouses and reported by news outlets. Guests and museum staff consistently report hearing the unmistakable sound of footsteps and the distinct tap-tap-tap of a cane along the spiral staircase and the upper floors, often heading toward the very lantern room he so faithfully tended. Furthermore, the spirit of his wife, Sarah, is also said to remain, often exhibiting a nurturing presence, with reports of unexplained tidying and lights that seem to switch on their own, as if the Robinsons continue their domestic duties. When you ascend the iron stairs, following the echoes of a cane and the faint presence of a man who literally willed himself to die rather than abandon his post, you have to ask, is Captain Robinson merely watching over the lake? Or is he waiting for someone to finally take his place? At the light, he refused to leave. 8. Old Jail Museum, Allegan. The Old Jail Museum in Allegan presents a charming duality. The front, a lovely 2-story Victorian residence where the sheriff and his family lived. The rear, a sudden plunge into the grim reality of iron bars and cold stone cells. Built in 1906 and operational until the 1960s, this building holds the dense, contrasting energy of domestic life right alongside human confinement, making for an unusually active haunting. The spirits here are not just former inmates. One of the most persistent apparitions is believed to be Elsie Runkle, a former sheriff's wife who still carries out her domestic duties. Witnesses consistently report seeing a small female apparition, busily working in the kitchen and dining room. and objects such as the clothes on a mannequin in the sheriff's bedroom are often found mysteriously rearranged or changed overnight. But cross into the jail section, and the atmosphere shifts violently. In the confinement areas, especially near the solitary cell known as the hole, visitors have been touched by cold, unseen hands and feel a sudden, intense sense of dread. Most uniquely, an earlier, tragic history is tied to the spirit of a little girl who died nearby in 1892, a ghostly entity often seen and heard on audio recordings. The museum openly acknowledges its ghostly residents, and its paranormal activity is regularly featured on local news. With the spectral lines between home and prison, caregiver and captive so deeply blurred, you have to wonder when you hear footsteps on the floor above. Are they the warden making his rounds? Or is it the lonely shuffle of a sheriff's wife who can never stop cleaning up after her past? 9. Seul choix. Point Lighthouse, Gulliver. On the desolate shore of Lake Michigan stands the Seul Choix Point Lighthouse, 40. A 79-foot beacon whose French name means only choice. A desperate refuge from the treacherous coastline that has now become a permanent prison for its keepers. This site is widely regarded by ghost hunters as one of the most haunted lighthouses on the Great Lakes. And the reason is deeply unnerving. Its most famous specter is Galkekorch Captain Joseph Willie Townshend, the second head keeper, who died in an upstairs bedroom in 1910. Because his death occurred in the harsh Upper Peninsula winter, the ground was frozen solid. The captain's body was embalmed in the cold basement and kept in the parlor for nearly 3 weeks before he could be buried, a prolonged confinement that is said to have trapped his spirit. Today, his presence is undeniable. Visitors and historical society staff consistently report the pungent, unmistakable odor of cigar smoke inside the dwelling, a habit his wife forbade him in life. And now, in death, he performs to spite her. Furthermore, he's known to be mischievous, rearranging silverware and wines on the dining room table and peering out of an upstairs mirror. The activity is so compelling that one highly skeptical paranormal investigator named the lighthouse as having some of the most verifiable evidence she had ever captured, including EVPs from the spirit of a deceased relative, Mary, who also died and was stored in the dwelling during a harsh winter storm, with the historical fact of the captain's body being stored right there in the house. You have to wonder when you climb the spiral staircase. Are you ascending to the light? Or are you disturbing the captain, who is finally enjoying his cigar and his eternal post? 10. Point Iroquois Lighthouse, Brimley, standing vigil at the entry to the St. Mary's River on the vast, often hostile shore of Lake Superior. The Point Iroquois Lighthouse is a picturesque beacon with a deep, dark history that predates its 1870 construction. The point itself takes its name from a brutal clash in 1662, where the local Ojibwa tribe decisively defeated an invading Iroquois war party, a massacre so complete that the native Algonquian name for the point translates chillingly to Hirichal Selmstelduk, place of Iroquois bones. The very soil beneath the lighthouse is a mass grave of vengeful warriors. This ancient bloodshed is coupled with later maritime tragedy in 1919. The steamer SS Myron was lost nearby in a ferocious storm, and its crew's frozen bodies washed up onto the shore beside the light station, where keeper Elmer Burns retrieved them. This accumulation of violent death creates a terrifying spiritual vortex. And the light is rumored to be haunted by multiple classes of phantoms. Visitors and staff have reported seeing shadow figures of Iroquois warriors roaming the grounds, perhaps eternally reliving their final battle. Most disturbing are the claims of a separate, heartbreaking haunting the apparition of a Nastor little girl who died after being attacked by a bear near the site. Her sad spirit still believed to linger. Furthermore, some visitors who wander through the old keeper's quarters have been startled by a disembodied, commanding voice that violently shouts, "Get out now!" The sense of profound trespass on this historically blood-soaked ground is almost overwhelming, with the screams of Iroquois warriors, the ghosts of shipwrecked sailors, and the terrifying command to flee echoing from a hidden spot. You have to wonder, is this lighthouse still guiding ships to safety? Or is it a permanent beacon for the restless dead who demand the living remember the blood spilled on the Iroquois bones? 11. The Felt Mansion, Holland. The Wahe Felt Mansion. A magnificent Georgian revival fortress nestled in the Holland Dunes is not just a building, it's an enduring, tragic testament to love and immediate loss. Commissioned by wealthy inventor Dor E. Felt as a grand tribute to his wife, Agnes. The 25-room estate was finished in 1928, only for Agnes to tragically die 6 weeks after they moved in. This heartbreak is the core of its haunting. The spirit of Agnes is said to be trapped, unable to enjoy the dream home built specifically for her. This is not a subtle haunting. The activity is focused and personal. The mansion's former and current restoration staff consistently report inexplicable phenomena in Agnes's master bedroom. One restoration manager reported that every time she laid a decorative rug, she would return to find it crumpled and pushed aside, as if an unseen force was tidying up or throwing a tantrum. The mansion's chaotic history after the Felt family serving as a Catholic seminary, a nun's cloister, and even a state prison work camp has only compounded the spiritual energy, now embracing its eerie reputation. The estate hosts popular hauntings and history nights, where visitors are encouraged to bring their EMF detectors. Beyond Agnes, the mansion is also linked to the terrifying local urban legend of the Malacur home, Melonheads. Rumored mutant children who live in the nearby underground caverns, standing in the grand ballroom, where Agnes spent her last few weeks. You have to ask, is the mansion haunted by the ghost of a devoted wife, a vengeful phantom? Or is it a lighthouse for all the strange, desperate, and lost souls of West Michigan? 12. Morton House Museum, Benton Harbor. Perched on a hill overlooking the city it helped found, the Morton House Museum. The oldest building in Benton Harbor is a beautiful 1849 Victorian residence, where 4 generations of the influential Morton family lived and died. But step inside this historical landmark, and you are immediately in the presence of the past. The house is considered intensely haunted, a fact openly acknowledged by museum staff and board members who have learned to live with their spectral residents. The ghost sightings are unnervingly specific. Volunteers have reported seeing a woman in an antique dress coming down the stairs when the building was known to be empty. Even more active are the spirits of 2 Swedish sisters, the Korfs, who allegedly tried and failed to buy the house and are now forever trapped in the kitchen, haunting the very room they coveted. The most compelling evidence comes from paranormal investigators who have not only captured photographs of unexplainable orbs descending the staircase, but have also collected clear electronic voice phenomena (EVP), where disembodied voices on recordings are believed to be the former Morton family members speaking. The museum's executive director has even admitted to announcing her presence when entering the quiet house, a practical precaution for dealing with the unquiet dead. With the original founders of the city still walking the halls and an old, out-of-tune piano sometimes sounding a single phantom note in the silence. You have to ask, is this merely a museum preserving Benton Harbor's history? Or is it a fully occupied home where the ghosts of the past are the true and permanent residents? 13. Amway Grand Plaza Hotel, Grand Rapids. The Amway Grand Plaza Hotel. Once the legendary Pantlin Hotel, ranked one of the 10 finest hotels in America, is a structure of grand opulence built in 1913. But its gold-leaf ceilings conceal a horrific, documented tragedy. The most famous haunting is tied to a shocking, fatal accident that took place in 1914. A newspaper article from the time confirms the gruesome end of Verstauenhandgenakel. Mary Munko ran, a hotel servant who was decapitated in an elevator shaft. Adavarn on the 10th floor when a playful mishap with the controls went tragically wrong. The original elevator where she died is now permanently sealed off behind a cage. But her spirit is anything but contained. Guests and staff consistently report hearing the phantom sound of a blood-curdling scream, abruptly cut short in the middle of the night, often near the sealed elevator shaft or on the 10th floor. Beyond this trauma, the hotel is a hub of paranormal mischief rooms. 336 and 337 are notorious hotspots where guests wake to find shadow figures hovering over their beds. Where faucets blast steaming hot water on their own, and phantom couples are seen waltzing in the pant-lined ballroom long after the music has stopped. In fact, the spiritual activity is so intense that the hotel has begun openly embracing its reputation, offering dedicated Ghosts of the Grand tours and even allowing guests to request an Idjahon overnight stay on a haunted floor. When you check into this grand hotel, you have to wonder, is the service you receive truly from the living staff? Or are you being attended to by the mischievous and tormented spirits of the city's grandest and most haunted destination? 14. Eloise Asylum, Westland. Eloise Asylum is not just a haunted location. It's a decaying city of the damned. Starting as a poorhouse in 1839, the complex ballooned into a massive, self-sufficient institution that once housed 10,000 residents, complete with its own hospital, sanatorium, and poorhouse. It became a crucible of profound human suffering, where thousands died. Many were subjected to barbaric medical procedures like lobotomies and hydrotherapy. And countless bodies were buried in the enormous, largely unidentified Eloise Cemetery across the street. Even today, the spiritual darkness clings to the still-standing buildings. The list of active hauntings is extensive. Staff members and paranormal investigators report encountering the Hat Man, a malevolent entity that is said to be a watcher in places of high trauma, often appearing in hallways before vanishing. More terrifying are the phantom sounds of the past. Strange moans, screams, and maniacal roars that emanate from the empty administrative and patient wards. Staff often share personal, terrifying accounts. Footsteps are heard getting louder and more raucous, on abandoned floors. And employees working in the dark basement have described the horrifying feeling of being X-ray stalked by a shadowy creeper. The place is so steeped in pain that when it was still operational, the psychiatric division had its own zip code, a testament to its isolation and density of despair. Now, the surviving structures host haunted attractions and paranormal tours, openly capitalizing on the misery of their history. With almost 2 centuries of trauma, medical malpractice, and unidentified graves saturating the grounds, you have to ask when you enter Eloise Asylum, is your fear generated by the actors and special effects? Or is it a primal, psychic reaction to the very real pain of the thousands of tormented souls who still believe they are confined within its walls? 15. Blood Cemetery, Langsberg. The very name, Blood Cemetery Woodice in Langsberg, promises darkness, and its terrifying local legend delivers one of Michigan's most notorious true crime ghost stories. A tale so compelling, it is regularly featured by local media. This small, isolated graveyard, once the family plot of the wealthy Bloods, is forever cursed by the horrific actions of Bloodornhansen. The legend claims the kindly doctor snapped, fatally shooting his wife, then gruesomely dismembering her body with an axe, before walking to the cemetery and hanging himself from a tree. The story escalates years later, when a group of teenagers dared a friend to trespass inside the abandoned Blood Mansion next door. When the terrified teens sought out a local policeman after their friend vanished, they returned to find the mansion burned completely to the ground. Hours later, the charred body of the missing boy was discovered inside, his hands and feet tied, lying next to a shotgun and a bloody axe. The final shocking twist the next morning. A freshly dug grave was found in the cemetery containing the dismembered corpse of Mrs. Blood, but the doctor's body was never found. This terrifying history of murder, dismemberment, and phantom revenge has cemented the cemetery's status as a violent spiritual hotspot. To this day, ghost hunters flock here, claiming to see the apparition of an armless and headless woman in red fen. The tormented ghost of Mrs. Blood who disappears into the sudden fog. The final chilling warning passed down by all who have explored this site is universal. Never, ever go there alone. With the ghosts of a murderous doctor and his dismembered wife roaming the grounds, and a trail of unexplained violence rooted in its history. Are you brave enough to ignore the centuries-old plea to stay away? Or will you risk becoming the next victim to discover why the grave is still called Blood Cemetery? We've tracked the phantom footsteps of keepers who died at their posts, heard the screams of soldiers from 1813, and confronted the sorrow of souls trapped in the old jail and Felt Mansion. Michigan's ghosts are not just stories, they are echoes of tragedy confirmed by history. Which of these 15 places will you visit next? And more importantly, do you think you'll be able to leave